Good afternoon and welcome back to my workshop journey. We left the story last week with my project at the point of needing a stop for the router fence. When originally built, you'll see behind me I put a T-track on the top of the fence, and to use that I'm going to be cutting the angle aluminium. Now, several ways I can do that. My neighbour Tim has offered the use of his metal chop saw, and I'm very grateful for that. But what I thought I'd do this afternoon is use the bandsaw. Now, this is the machine, I've probably mentioned this before, that it has a very great range of speeds. You can go from 42 revs per minute right up to over 1,000 revs a minute. And one thing that I have noticed is with the 14 teeth per inch premium blade from Axminster, and I'll put a link to that in the description below this video, that on a very slow speed with the 14 teeth per inch premium blade you can cut non-ferrous metals on this machine. So I thought I'd do that to start with and see how it goes. I've got plenty of metal to be going with. All I've got to do, this is the 3 teeth per inch skip tooth. That's far too coarse for this work. So first things first is change the blade, and then we'll have a look at cutting the metal. So I've changed the blade. I've squared everything up so that the blade is parallel with perpendicular to the fence here and here, and I've now marked up the aluminium. I'm going to take a 50mm cut, so that means I'm going to get plenty out of here for when I need to use extra work. So I've made sure that the blade is on the slowest speed possible. As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the speed is totally alterable between 42 RPM and 1000 RPM. So long as I keep the blade really slow and keep the feed rate very slow, the book says I should be able to cut this piece of aluminium. But also I mustn't put the dust extraction on for this, because that's one thing that the book says about using this bandsaw. So I've adjusted the height of the rollers to clear the piece. So let me put my ears on and we'll make a start. that was very easy to do. I don't know whether you can see that, but not many filings at all there, but it's a lovely clean cut, and there's very little heat on that whatsoever. And okay, it needs a little bit of filing down just to take the sharp edge off, but that is a beautiful piece of cutting. I'm very pleased with that. Excellent. So I'm going to need 2 of these. Let me mark up the stock and I'll make the second cut. So 2 angled pieces of aluminium, beautifully cut. I'm very impressed with the result, and that's something I'm going to be using again at some point. But all I've got to do now is clean the machine, then I can change the blade back to the normal 3 TPI skip blade for general cutting, and then we can carry on with the fence stops. Right, I've filed the edges smooth so that no sharp bits to hamper my delicate little fingers. Next thing, I'm just going to start cutting this piece down. You saw that last time, and that's basically going to be like that. I'm just going to chop the top off, and then I can make the channel in there to take that piece. So I'm going to do that on the bandsaw. Power on. Just make sure that's roughly where I want it. Ears. So that is cut to height. All I've got to do now is take that channel down there, and that would be a case of 2 or 3 passes to take that piece inside the work out. I'm going to be working against the fence here. Oops, that's it. Right, that's part of it taken out. Let's just test. Well, that's wide enough to take the insert. I've just got it a little bit inside the cut to dispose of, and that will be fine. That's like that. So that then will just need a hole drilling in the top and 5 holes drilling there, and then I can drill the pilot holes here, and then I can screw through one side into the other. Everything will then be nice and solid. Right, let's get the pillar drill set up and then I can drill these holes. So I've marked the first of the brackets with the square of where I want the 5 holes to go. So I've done it 15mm from either edge and then 10mm from each of the sides. So those are going to be the 4 corners, and then one in the middle for supporting. On the top of the bracket I've drawn 2 parallel lines, and that corresponds to where the T-track track actually runs. Those are where I'm going to put the 2 nuts to hold each of these brackets in place. I've marked that one. I'm just going to mark the second piece. Then I've made sure I've got decent centre punch, and that will make sure that the holes, when I get to the pillar drill, go exactly where I want. So I'm just going to mark the second piece up, and then we'll be ready to make the cuts. That's the first 5. Second 5, slightly taller piece of wood. all holes centered, let's just set the pillar drill up. Now, how I've gone about choosing the drill size to use, those are the locking nuts or bolts that I'm going to be using, and using my trusty good woodworking screw gauge that I've had for years, it gives me the size of the thread, and this goes nicely into the clearance of the 7.5mm. So if I use the 8mm drill, that's going to give me a nice tightish clearance for the holes for these top 4 holes there. Those 10, I'm going to be using ordinary wood screws for those. Those are going to be 5mm, and so what I've decided to do, I'm going to use the 6mm drill for those. Now, you've noticed I've cut myself a support block. I'm holding the workpieces firmly against it, square in all directions, and that's going to be set up on the pillar drill table. There we go. 10 lovely holes on that side, 4 on there. All I've got to do now is mark the wood, and then I can start cutting. Now, there's just a little bit of tidying up here to do. The hole has got quite a big lip on all of these 6mm holes that I've just drilled, so I'm just going to tidy those off with a file. That's that. Right, we've had a little break in transmission, if you like, because I was just on the point of just cutting the last slot, cutting the second stop to size, when I made the first cut, tentative cut, and the blade snapped. That meant I'd got to change the blade, so put me a little bit behind, but never mind. Right, I've got 2 stops now that are identical in size. I've got the 2 brackets. All I'm going to do now is mark where on the wood the holes actually appear, and then I can just drill the pilot holes through here. That's all I need to do, because the screws will take care of cutting into the rear of the stop. Once that's done, it will be like that, won't it? So that needs to be like that. Mark where those are, then I can just cut the clearance holes. Those are the 10 holes done, and if I just mark that one as A, then I know which piece goes with which bracket, and I'll mark that one B, B. Okay, let me just cut those clearance holes. Well, 5 holes in each piece. Now all I'm going to do is countersink those. That way everything will be nice and flush and nothing will impede the operation of these stops. There we go. There's a little bit of chafing just there, so a quick rub over with paper will just smooth that off, and then we can get the screws in. Now, one thing that this video will never ever be able to show, and this is one reason why I really love woodwork, the smell of the wood. This is pitch pine, and the odour as I was cutting the holes and then countersinking, it was an absolute delight. And it's a smell I will never ever tire of. Let me just tidy this. Good. Now, I've got several screws I can choose. What I've gone for is the 35mm 4mm, and so you'll be able to see there that there's plenty of depth but also plenty of clearance on this side. So that's tidied inside up, getting rid of some of the breakout, so those will now just go in there. The holes line up perfectly. Now it's a case of just good. Again, very firmly attached. Nothing's come through from the other side. All done. The fence then, and the 2 bolts on either side. So let's just slip those in there. That just slips over there. And that's nice and firm. Second one. That's nice and firm, and just loosening them off, and they slide fairly easily. Now, one thing I have realised is, with the legs being nearly 650 millimeters long, one stop will be fine for stopping it going too far that way, because I'm only cutting between those 2 mortises. So that will be something like that. Let's move this out of the way. So roughly there. The cutter will be somewhere around here, so that will be fine. But because I need to have a stop back here, be somewhere like that, this, even if it was full length, won't be long enough. So I'm going to have to think, how am I going to do this? I could always have 2 strips and have them extending beyond the end of the fence, or Peter Parfitt in New Brit Workshop, and I'll put a link to his video in the description below. He came up with a stop that was in front of the fence. I could do something similar and have both in operation. I'll have to give that some thought, but that's as far as I'm going today. I'm just going to pack up, tidy everything away, and then we'll see you on the next video. thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.